Hello everybody and welcome back to another video. I'm really excited to do a reading vlog, and it's actually got a bit of a theme this time. Normally when I do reading vlogs I don't really have a theme, however with it being October I definitely wanted to do some sort of spooky horror themed reading vlog, and then I had came up with the idea roughly around the same time that I saw Books and Lala post kind of a very similar video where she's reading specifically short horror fiction, short story collections and novellas, and I thought to do the same exact thing because I have accumulated quite a stack of options. I have 3 horror short story collections that I've accumulated and then 9 novellas that I've accumulated. This one could be considered not a novella because it is just over 200 pages. However, it's such like a tiny book and the font is pretty like decently sized as well. So to me this is a novella, but like I understand if other people don't consider it because like I do have a couple other books that then, if we're looking at just over 200 pages, could be brought in. However, they're not this like little tiny guy. They're, you know, normal sized books. So I'm considering this one as part of my novellas. So do I plan to read all of these in this vlog? Absolutely not. I'm starting this on a Wednesday, and normally I end my vlogs on like a Sunday. That way that just gives me enough time to edit and get it up in time. So I will be doing like today through Sunday. However, I do plan to get through, you know, more, you know, kind of multiple of these. Definitely the goal is like at least one of these short story collections. I have a really short one. It's like a novella itself. It's like under 100 pages, but several short stories. It's The Stay Awake Men and Other Unstable Entities. I've got one by Eric LaRocca, This Skin Was Once Mine. And then I've got another one that's a bit thicker, that is Not a Speck of Light. And then in terms of my novellas, I've got the one that is questionably not a novella, In the Miso Soup, You Should Have Left, House of Rot, One Hand to Hold, One Hand to Carve, We Can Never Leave This Place, The Night Guest, The Woods All Black, Comfort Me with Apples, and The Salt Grows Heavy. This one I know is more fantasy leaning, but it is still horror. And then this one I've heard nothing but amazing things about, which has me very scared but very excited for it. I built up the hype of this one so much in my head. And then, you know, a couple that I've got from the horror convention, a couple that I've just accumulated. But yeah, very excited for this. I don't know how far I'm going to like get in terms of progress today. It is actually the middle of the day. This is my lunch time while I work, so decided to take a lunch break, film this intro. But then after work, I do know that Connor and I have a friend in town, and we are going out with a group of friends to this like little bar restaurant place that does a record night every Wednesday night. It's super cute, kind of really cool place. I'll try to get some B-roll to show you guys, but we are going to go to that. So I think my plan is to start a short story collection today. One of these 3, you like almost can't see the third one because it's so tiny. One of these 3, and at least get like a start on one of these before I go, and then depending on when we get back, you know, before I go to bed. But that is kind of my plan for tonight. I don't know which one. I'm kind of leaning towards Not a Speck of Light, just because it's longer, and so it's a good one to like bring with me if I'm going somewhere. Like I definitely plan to go to a coffee shop at some point, and so like I don't have to worry about bringing multiple books, you know, because a lot of these are so short. However, you know, I'm very excited about all 3 of these. So I don't know for sure which one I'm going to start with, but that is kind of my plan tonight. But I did just want to open up this vlog, and I'm really excited for it. It is now the next day, Thursday. I did end up only getting through one short story, but I'm happy that I got through one, considering I was quite busy yesterday. So I did end up picking the short story collection by Laird Barron, Not a Speck of Light. It is, I think, like 16 short stories. The first one is called, I already forgot. So what's interesting is they're kind of actually grouped into 4 groups. First group is Blood Red Samaritans, second group is Wandering Stars, third group is Alan Smithy is Dead, fourth group is Lake Terror. So I don't know if they're all kind of like following these same themes, that's what I'm assuming. First story is In a Cavern in a Canyon. What's interesting is each of them come with this little black and white like art piece at the beginning, and I liked this first one. I didn't rate it. I should probably like rate each of these stories. I think if I had to rate it, I'd maybe give it like a 3.5. I enjoyed it. I was really surprised how easy it was to just fall into Barron's writing style. I am really enjoying it, and I was also really pleasantly surprised about how quickly I came to be familiar with the characters involved in the story despite how short it is. He just very quickly and like expertly painted a picture of who these characters were, and I came to, you know, have a sense of like caring about them and what happened to them. I do want to say, despite the like horror aspect of this first one being quite successfully creepy, I was kind of disappointed about how like the end kind of got tied in, or how we made it to the end, because it felt, I guess I was maybe a little confused, or I didn't quite understand like why this like creature or entity appeared at the end. Basically we're following, it's actually kind of the first little, there's like a few blurbs on here, and the first blurb is for the first story. Somewhere in Alaska, a middle-aged woman confronts a terrifying creature that haunts disaster sites. And so we actually get a couple of flashbacks to her childhood and growing up and when she first encountered this entity, and then flashing forward to the present as well. And yeah, I think overall it was done really well. I just wish that there was a bit more of like a tighter sense of why we were even seeing this entity at like the present timeline. But I had a good time with it. So I do anticipate reading at least one more story from this tonight. I don't know if I'll read more than one more, but the novella that I plan to pick up is The Salt Grows Heavy by Cassandra Cobb. This one, I think, out of my stack that I pulled, has been on my TBR the longest. Maybe not quite the longest, but almost. It's one of the ones that's been on there the longest. There might be one that's been on there a little longer. But because of that, I wanted to pick this one up first. And I am going to go into this not rereading the synopsis, because I don't really remember it. I think it has to do with murderous mermaids, plague doctors, and there's like children, like a child cult or something. I'm not 100% sure. That's what I remember, and that's what I'm going to go into it in the mindset of, but I will, you know, touch base with you because it's so short. It's like literally just over 100 pages. I'm just going to update you once I finish it with my thoughts. I think that's probably how I'm going to approach this. I plan to probably just read it all in one night, since again it's just over 100 pages, and the font, it's like a normal sized font. It's not like, not too big, not too small, but yeah, that's what I plan to pick up, so definitely read this, maybe another short story here, but of course, as always in a vlog, typically right after an update, the plan is to take care of the little lady, eat dinner, but then we're gonna read. 9A. Just finished up with work, and yesterday I did read and finish, whoa, hello. And yesterday I did read and finish The Salt Grows Heavy by Cassandra Khaw, and I ended up giving this a 4. I had a really great time with this. First of all, the writing, gorgeous, like super pretty, just very lyrical. And you know, like sometimes when you get really into a story, you start reading faster and faster because you're just really into it. This one, I was really into it, but I just kind of like really slowed down my reading because the writing was so beautiful that I just kind of wanted to take my time with it and enjoy it. So I was correct that like there's murderous mermaids, plague doctors, like a cult of children, that is all involved. Basically we're following this mermaid and a plague doctor as they kind of leave this kingdom that they were originally at, and they are going off. They don't really know where exactly they're going. They're just kind of like starting to travel away from there, and they stumble across a group of children who worship these 3 surgeons. They call them their saints, in this little kind of makeshift village out in the middle of nowhere. And it ends up becoming quite gruesome and gory and sinister, and this was creepy and unsettling, beautiful, and also kind of weirdly heartwarming. It is a bit of a love story, which is quite interesting. It's like a romantic horror fairy tale, I guess you could say. It's got kind of like a skeleton of a fairy tale, yet feels, you know, very much like the classic fairy tales that were quite grim and dark, and make it more dark and gory. But yeah, this was a lot of fun. I had a really great time with this. I can see why some people it just doesn't work for them. It feels like there is a bit of a polarity with how people feel. People either really enjoy this, have a good time, give it 4 to 5 stars, or they are not into it at all. So I'm happy that I landed in the kind of positive side of things. I do think that this worked pretty well as a novella. I know Khaw's other novella, I have it right here, Nothing But Blackened Teeth, I read either last year or the year before, and while I liked this, it really needed to be like a full-fledged novel because it was very focused on kind of like the history between these characters and kind of these complex toxic relationships, and that like played a big part in this. And I think in order for that to really pack the punch that it needed to, this needed to be a full-length novel. However, this I think works really well as a novella, and I would have been happy to have more with it, but I think Khaw did a really good job of kind of keeping this self-contained. So yeah, I had a really great time with this. I did read another story in Not a Speck of Light. The next one that I read was called, what's the title? Girls Without Their Faces On. And this, so this is kind of what the little beginning looks like. This is one where this felt like an outline to something that should have been at the very minimum a novella, if not a full-length novel. The concept was really cool. Yeah, there was so much that could have been like more deeply explored that I think the short story format just did not lend well to what Laird was trying to do in this one, because I was super intrigued and super interested in it. Yeah, do you agree? Do you agree it needed to be longer? Yeah, she agrees. This needed to be longer. Like, super interested. Basically, we are following this young woman who's leaving a party with her boyfriend, and it's the middle of the night. They're in Alaska. I'm not sure if all of these are in Alaska, but the first 2 of these stories were set in Alaska, which is quite interesting. But her and her boyfriend are leaving this party, and she starts to feel very uncomfortable, very unsettled. And she's starting to think, like, you know, I've spent 9 months with this man and I don't know him. She starts getting really paranoid. He leaves to go get his jacket because they're sitting in the car, they're talking, blah, blah, blah. He leaves because he claims he forgot his jacket, even though he's wearing his jacket. Goes back up to the house. She starts getting even more nervous and paranoid, so she gets out of the car, hides in the woods. He comes back. Things start happening. I think this just would have been a really fascinating, at the very minimum, novella, if not a full-length novel. Just with how things progressed in this story. It felt very choppy. It felt very much like an outline. Like, all the big events, I was like, I need a lot more information about what's going on here. And so yeah, I was kind of disappointed in that. Like, in a way disappointed, in another way impressed and very intrigued, but like for the story itself, I just really wanted more. I might pick up another one of these. Like, I might read another one of these. The next one is called Mobility. This is what it looks like. I might read another one of these before I update you again. In terms of the next novella I'm gonna read, I really don't know what I feel like picking. Haven't decided yet, so I think, you know, I've got my stack. I think we're gonna discover together in the B-roll whatever I end up picking next. It is Saturday morning, and yesterday I did read and finish A House of Rot by Danger Slatter, and I had a really great time with this. I was very surprised just with the direction that this book took, and kind of less the direction, more the message and like the entire meaning behind why this book was written. I just really enjoyed it, was really impressed, had a great time. That being said, I did give it 4 stars, 4.5, just because as much as I liked it, there were pieces of humor in here that I think, like, they weren't offensive or anything. It was just simply, like, it didn't work for me. Like, if there's gonna be humor in books, it has to, like, it either hits or just completely misses, and most of the time I feel like it misses, and in this case it did miss, so I kind of just was a little like meh on that. So yeah, that's why it's like 4.5. But yeah, I had a really great time with this. Basically, we're following this newly married couple. They're in their like mid-30s, and they just moved in to an apartment. And their apartment, like the next day, they wake up and there's mold starting to grow all over their apartment. And this neighbor comes over, or tries to come over, kind of like peeks in the window, and is like, "Hey, what y'all doing in there?" And they're like, "Hey, yeah, give me a second, let me come outside," and they try to open the door, and the door is sealed shut by all of the mold, as well as like the windows and everything, and so they are trapped in this house that is very quickly just being overtaken by mold and mushrooms and fungus. I think the only way I can talk about what this book is like a metaphor for, or what it's discussing, it's gonna kind of it's gonna potentially get into spoiler territory. You know, this book is like 106 pages long, and so it's hard to talk about aspects of this without, you know, ending up just talking about the entire thing. I don't know if it would actually be considered a spoiler, because I'm literally just going to talk about like the themes in this book, but it might be. So if you don't want to hear about potential spoiler stuff, I'm not going to really talk about plot points, but you know, spoilers of what this book is really talking about, go ahead and skip ahead. I'll put a timestamp up somewhere around here. So go away, shoo, skip ahead to the next section. Honestly, it kind of gives you an idea of it on the back. Like, it says there's like 2 quotes here of like reviews. First of all, I think it's very apt. It says the gross, hilarious love child of Kurt Vonnegut and Junji Ito, which I think fits really well. And then the second one, though, talks about kind of like the theme of this book, and it says a poignant and revolting masterpiece of fungal horror that captures the millennial condition with heartbreaking precision. First of all, actually, I meant to mention with like the Junji Ito thing, there are a handful of like art pieces in here. Like this one's towards the very beginning, and where it's just like there's not a lot. There's like maybe 4 in here, but yeah, there's one of them. But basically, this entire book is talking about what it's like to go into your 20s and 30s as a millennial and expected to buy a house and basically be handed all of these problems that were set up for us by the previous generations and handle them without complaining, with the idea of like the previous generation, you know, we suddenly, it's very, very hard for millennials to buy a house. I'm gonna be kind of like scattered about this, about how I explain this, but it's basically the idea of like the older generation, or, you know, we say something and we're like, hey, we're kind of drowning here because of this situation that was just kind of like we came into, and we're really struggling here. We need some sort of help. And a lot of the older generations just tell us, quit complaining. I don't understand why you're complaining. We did it just fine and we figured it out. Why can't you? You're just not trying hard enough. And there's so many other people who have it way worse than you. Why are you complaining? You don't deserve to complain. And it's this idea of this couple is just in the scenario that they're like literally trapped in, and it's completely out of their control, and it was something that they were just basically like given without any sort of like notice that this was an issue, and told to figure it out because we figured it out before you, despite the fact that 40 years ago the world was much different than it is today, and the whole landscape of just how you go into getting a job, buying a house, putting any sort of money into any sort of like retirement funds is very, very different than what it was 40 years ago. And so that's kind of what this book is talking about, and I think it was just done really, really well. There's some very pointed moments. It was done really well, and I was really impressed. So there's House of Rot. I highly recommend it. I think if the type of humor hits for you, and I don't even know how to explain it. It's like just kind of like goofy. I think this book will really work for you. But yeah, I did not read any more short stories. I do plan to read at least 1 today, maybe 2, maybe 3. I don't know. I also don't know, again, what novella I'm gonna pick out. And I do plan to actually go to a coffee shop here really soon. I'm gonna walk down to one and just hang out there for a little while. I'm hoping, I really wanted some sort of like fall coffee treat, and so I figured it'd be good to go take a nice walk, go down there and get that treat and read for a bit. So that is my plan for at least this morning. I don't really know what I plan to do the rest of the day. I might actually try to get some of this edited. We'll see if that happens. You know, future me will thank me if I decide to get a jump on editing. We'll see if present me decides to actually do that. But yeah, I'm gonna go figure out what I'm gonna read next, pack that up, and head out to that coffee shop. is Sunday morning. I actually just got back from breakfast with some friends, and I'm not really sure what the plan is for today. I do know what I hope to read today, and actually I plan to read no matter what, but I don't know exactly what's going on outside of that, but I did want to pop in and give an update that I did read and finish another novella yesterday. No short stories, I didn't get to any of them, but I did get to One Hand to Hold, One Hand to Carve by M. Shaw. My brother Bryce actually picked this one. I sent him a picture of all the novellas that I had left as options, and I was like, pick my next one for me, and he picked this one. He actually, side note, has read The Woods All Black, which is another one that was an option. He said that he would still recommend it, but it was lacking for him. He said it was good, but he wanted a lot more out of it, but overall would still recommend it. So there's that little mini review from him. That one I haven't read yet. It was in the stack of options, but yeah, he picked this one. And this one, for me, it was just okay. Basically, we are following these two brothers who actually, they wake up in like a med school morgue, and they wake up and they are a single cadaver that has been cut in half, and each side has woken up as their own sentient individual person, and so they call each other left and right, and it's their story of how they decide that they want to go about, you know, being people, but one of them wants to stay as like a pair, and the other wants to be more of an individual person. So the one is kind of stuck more in the past and how they're living currently, and the other is wanting to explore more, live in the future, see what the world has to offer. And so it's their story kind of exploring that, exploring this idea of what it means to have your whole sense of self revolve around another person's, and kind of what happens when that other person then wants to be their own individual and kind of grow as an individual instead of kind of attached to the hip kind of a person. I think actually Anne Vandermeer blurbed it here, and she honestly said it really well. It's a haunting story that explores the blurred lines between the autonomous self and the intimate bonds of relationships. And so you can look at this in any sort of relationship, but this is kind of focused on more like familial bonds. So it was quite interesting. I will say, like, the first part was weird, the last part was weird, but the middle part felt very kind of quiet and almost like normal, I guess. And I feel like the middle, like, kind of more normal, quiet part felt like it took up just a big chunk of this, and I was thinking it was gonna go in like a different direction than it did. I was thinking that it was just gonna be much different, and like, it was good, it just didn't do completely what I wanted it to do. So I think overall I'm giving this a 3-star, just because it was okay. I do think that it is kind of just something interesting to read and think about, so I would recommend it, but just know that it is just much quieter. But yeah, there is that one. I don't know if I will get to short stories at all, but I do know I 100% want to read Comfort Me with Apples by Catherine M. Valent as my final novella for this vlog. I think I'm going to end it after this one. I was kind of mistaken. This isn't necessarily horror. It's more of a thriller, but I've like seen and heard people also classifying it as horror, so I think it might kind of be in that weird middle ground between thriller and horror. It's just over 100 pages. I think it's like 103 pages. I don't really know what this is about. Every time I see somebody read it, they love it, and they're just like freaking out about it, and so I have high expectations, which I'm worried about, first of all, because, you know, sometimes when you go in with really high expectations for something, it kind of falls flat just because you built it up so much in your head, but we will see. I don't really know. I think it's more of like a domestic thriller, something about, I don't know. I don't know. Because, like, from my understanding, it's hard for people to explain what this is and, like, what it's about without giving it away. But I think it's, like, a husband-wife kind of a situation, and the wife is, like, in this, like, perfect marriage, perfect life type of a thing. It literally says everything is perfect at the top, but then quickly realizes that is not the case. That's my understanding going into this. I know it's very vague. I'm kind of trying to keep it that way. I don't really want to read the synopsis prior to going into this. Again, I have read it before, but... Are you good back there? Are you good? But yeah, that is my plan for reading, to finish this vlog out, is to read and finish this. Again, I don't really know what I'm doing today. It's kind of up in the air. I know it's kind of like the last day before a couple people that are in town that have been hanging out with Connor and some of our other friends. It's kind of the last day of all of that, my understanding. So I think... we might do a little bit more with them, but yeah, I just wanted to pop in, update you on finishing this and moving forward with this. Hello, I am back. It is now Sunday afternoon and I have finished Comfort Me with Apples by Catherine Valente. 5 stars. I see the hype. I understand now. Why would people read this book? They're like, this is so good, and I also understand why. I literally can't tell you why it's good, because it's all in, like, if I tell you why it's so good, it ruins the entire experience of Are you good? Are you okay? Hey. But yeah, if I were to tell you what this is, like, why it's good, it ruins the entire experience. The only thing I can tell you is that we are following Sophia and like, her and her husband, they live in this gated community, and everything's perfect. And that's all that I can tell you. That's it. That's all I can tell you. I loved the way that this reveal was done. It was like, because I suddenly found myself realizing what was happening, but I was like, am I understanding this correctly? Like, is this what's happening? And then we get a little further, oh, this is what's happening. Interesting. I did not expect what, like, this book is about. Didn't see it coming. Was very impressed, and I literally can't talk about it though, because it's so short. It's 103 pages, and like, the whole reason why I loved it so much is, like, the themes and everything that's going on and the whole point of this book. And so yeah, I don't want to spoil it. The writing is beautiful. And she has, it looks like quite a backlog of books. Like, she's got like a whole list here of other things that she's written. So I am curious about checking out some of her other work. This is the only one I've heard about. So yeah, I might have to take a look at some of her other stuff. But yeah, this was really, really great. So I am pretty happy. I made it through 4 novellas. Let's see, 4-star, 4.5, a 3, and a 5, which I think is pretty impressive. And then only 2 short stories, but you know, I'm really happy with this. I think I had a really great time. I think short form horror is just something that I think is really popular and can be done really well. And I think it's just like a popular form of the horror genre. I just don't go into it too much. I usually go towards more like full-length novels, but I definitely need to start checking out more short-form horror, especially stuff from like small indie publishing companies. Like, these 2 are from the same company. Tenebris Press. They're both from the same place, and you know, they were both very interesting, unique stories that I definitely want to just kind of keep my eye out on that small press some more. But I just wanted to thank you guys for sticking around with this video. I hope that one of the novellas that I read kind of struck your interest. Hopefully maybe you'll pick one of them up, or if you've read any of them, let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. But I just wanted to say thank you so much for watching this video. As always, I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!